Good morning, everyone. My name is Soleil Gonzalez. I'm a Director of Corporate Engagement and Relations at NAF, and I am really excited to introduce to you today Conrod Kelly from Merck, and I will not go into further details as to who he is or what he does at Merck. I'm going to allow him to go ahead and do that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and ask everyone to please make sure that your audio is set to mute and that your cameras are turned off for the moment. We will ask everyone to turn your cameras back on towards the end of the engagement. Also, if you have any questions as Conrad does his presentation, please make sure you put your questions in the chat, and I will ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Please direct your questions to the chat. I will call your name and ask the question for you. Thank you so much.
All right, Soleil, can I go ahead and get started? All right, I think that's a yes.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so good morning, everyone. Conrod Kelly, so happy to be with you guys. I'm currently located in Philadelphia, where we have about 2 feet of snow outside. So maybe if we have time towards the end, I can turn my camera to show you outside in the event some of you may not have seen snow, which was my situation when I first moved to the Northeast from Florida myself. So today we're going to talk about turning your brand into equity with your story, and I'll unpack that as we get through the presentation. So first of all, I want to share with you that I'm a graduate from Coral Reef Senior High School, Miami's magnet class of 2000. I wish I still had that hair. Now it's all gone, but I think I still kept the smile. But the funny story about going to Coral Reef is I was attending Southdale Senior High School. I grew up in Homestead, Florida. And we were told about Coral Reef being built. And so I applied to Coral Reef, and I wanted to be in the medical program. And so I applied to that program, and unfortunately, because of how the system worked, I didn't get in as a part of the raffle. And so I put in a second program that was a backup, which was the Business and Finance Academy. And through the initial raffle, I also didn't get in. And so I got a phone call from a number that I didn't realize, and I answered the phone, and it was the lead teacher. And she asked to speak to Conrod Kelly, although my name is Conrod Kelly. But I was like, I'm gonna let it slide because she's calling from Coral Reef. And what she said to me, her name was Mrs. Stinson. She said, I had one more spot left in my academy, and I was going through the list. I had 150 names, and she said, I came across your name, and it just sounded like someone who I think is going to do something special. So would you want to be part of the Business and Finance Academy at Coral Reef? And that is how I actually got into Coral Reef, through this phone call from Ms. Stinson, the last student selected to be able to attend Coral Reef and be part of the first graduating class. So I learned a lot there when I was at Coral Reef. And, one of the things that I learned was the benefits of arriving early and staying late. So here it was, I was attending Coral Reef. I show up, and on my first day, the first person that I actually run into is Mrs. Stinson. And, she just saw me there. She's like, hey, young man, can you help me carry these things in? I need to set up for a meeting. And when I did that, she said, what's your name, by the way? And I said, Conrod Kelly. And she said, you've got to be kidding me. Are you the same Conrod Kelly that I spoke to a few weeks ago? And I said, absolutely. And so in this meeting, I had an opportunity to help her make coffee for her business advisory group. And in doing so, I had an opportunity to sit in to listen to leaders in the local community who were helping her shape the curriculum to make sure that the students in her academy were going to have the best chance of being successful, whether they went directly into the workforce coming out of the academy or if they went to college. And so that was my first experience of, number one, learning how to make coffee. And I continued doing that my next, my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year at Coral Reef. But in sitting in those meetings, I had an opportunity to learn so much. At that time, once again, arriving early and staying late, I also learned to make friends with my teachers. And what's important to that, for you guys to remember, is that teachers make great friends. And what I mean by that is when you have people in your surrounding and in your network, that creates an opportunity for you to be able to grow and to develop. The teachers have life experiences that they can share with you that can prepare you for those next stages, whether, again, it's going into college or entering into the workforce. And I learned so much by spending time either in the morning or in the afternoon, even sometimes at lunch, picking my teachers' brains about different topics. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind, that teachers do make great friends. And the last part that I want to highlight is the fact that a head start can last a lifetime. I think about the opportunities that was afforded to me being at Coral Reef, being in the Academy of Business and Finance, learning from my teachers, being able to make coffee and sit in on those conversations. And as a result of that, when I was in my senior year, Florida A&M University called up Coral Reef, and they said they had spots for 4 students. I did well in high school. I wouldn't say I was the valedictorian, but for the relationships I had cultivated with the teachers, the administration, Ms. Stinson, I was one of the 4 students that was selected. And so, of course, keeping with this theme, and if you can remember this, or actually you got to ask your parents about this, at the time, there was no map, there was no GPS. You had to use MapQuest. You had to print out the instructions and take it with you. And on that day, it was a monsoon in Miami. The roads were closed, and I had to kind of go and ask people how to get to the location. And so sure enough, I arrived late for this scholarship event. So I rushed in, I wrote down my GPA, I wrote down my SAT score, and said, hurry up and go in, they're getting ready to start the program. And when I walked in, next thing I know was the president of the university was handing out full scholarships, and based on my GPA and my SAT score, I got a full academic scholarship for both my bachelor's degree and my master's degree to attend Florida A&M University. And so I had a chance to go to FAMU. I majored in business, and in doing so, a lot of those things that I talked about earlier, arriving early, staying late, making friends with your professors, I stopped making coffee, but at the same time, it was an opportunity for me to have a great experience. But what was most important is 2 things. The NAF curriculum prepared me to be able to go into business school and excel. Also, the requirements to be a NAF graduate also set me up to get additional scholarships outside of the one that I got from Florida A&M University. And so when I talk about a head start creating benefits for a lifetime, now it was giving me an opportunity to go to college. I didn't have to pay or take out any student loans, and I actually had extra scholarship dollars that I actually used to invest based on what I was learning in business school. But I was able to excel in college because of the foundation that was provided to me at Coral Reef as a part of the Academy of Finance. And so upon graduating from FAMU, or let me back up a little bit, I actually had the opportunity to do internships through the Inroads program. But my first internship actually started being a NAF. And so I had a chance to intern at American Bankers Insurance Group, which now became Assurant Group. And that helped me secure internships through Inroads when I got to college. And those Inroads internship afforded me the opportunity to work at great companies like Johnson & Johnson and GlaxoSmithKline, which were in the healthcare field, which is what I had originally applied to the NAF program to do. And so as a result of that training in high school, allowing me to excel when I got to college, I ended up graduating from FAMU, and I had 6 job offers, all worth $100,000. And this is back in 2006. And so again, these were companies like Pfizer, who's in the healthcare space, Johnson & Johnson, GlaxoSmithKline. And it was such an amazing opportunity for me because, again, now it's paying forward. Here it was a college student, grown up in Homestead, went to Coral Reef, got a full ride to FAMU, and now graduating with a 6-figure starting salary and no college debt. And so when I think about my career thus far, as I mentioned, I actually ended up going back and working for GlaxoSmithKline. I worked in both sales and marketing. In Philadelphia, I had an opportunity to then go and work for Johnson & Johnson, living in California in the Silicon Valley. And then now I'm currently at Merck, where I've been through 2009. And in that role, I've been able to have a number of different jobs, an opportunity to advance. Most recently, I led a portfolio with $9 billion in sales. And so the fact that you get to run multi-billion-dollar brands at a multi-billion-dollar company, had a chance to travel to over 30 countries around the globe. And these are things that the opportunities that was given to me coming out of Coral Reef, it just kind of kept paying itself forward. And so one of the other things that I want to get into as we talk about building your brand today is the importance of always kind of staying on your learning journey. One of the things that you're learning right now is how to be a good learner and how to build good learning habits. And so for me, one of the ways that I continue my learning journey was to be able to write books. And so I've been fortunate enough to write and publish 2 books that really talked about how you continue to step up and develop and build a mental model around your professional growth. And for me, it really started, things that you probably don't like right now, which is homework. But the importance of homework is you being able to gain insight. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Decluttering, cleaning, and repairing is all about making investments and investing in yourself and your own development. Improving the curb appeal was not just about how you show up, but it's how do you create interest for people to want to understand and know your ideas and your dreams and to support those. And then lastly, it's about telling your story and how do you inspire other individuals. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But keeping with that theme and that picture you've seen earlier, college scholarships, job offers, once again, selling books, flying off the shelves, creating opportunities. And I want you to know that it's not just about creating money, and it's not about wealth. What you'll learn and what you started building there is a responsibility of giving back and paying it forward and giving back to your community. And so, all of these opportunities have been afforded to me. I've taken that opportunity to give back to the community, to give back to the college, and give back to those individuals that helped me to get to where I am today. So even that book that I've written, all of the proceeds are donated to Big Brother, Big Sister, which is an organization where I sit on the boards that helps in individuals matching and creating one-to-one mentoring relationships. So this is just for me a small token of being able to give back to all those individuals that helped me get to where I am today. So as we transition into the presentation, I want to read this poem to you. And if you don't know it, I highly encourage for you to go and look it up. And it's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. One of the things that was introduced to me at a very early age was this poem. And the importance of this was this notion of that when you are yourself, when you are your authentic self, you're actually able to draw people into you. And the more confident you are in who you are, it actually encourages other people to be confident in themselves. And all of you are leaders because you're part of these programs. You're leaders because you're here today when you didn't have to be. And so I want you to remember how much power you have and that power lies within your story and it lies within your brand. So if I take a step back and if I was in person, this would be interactive. I'd be walking around the room, but we're just going to go with it given where we are with COVID. So I ask you this question of which has more power, and I want to see how many people are paying attention. So if people can go in the chat, I want to see some comments there. Which one do you think has more power, a product or a brand? And I'm going to take a look to see what people are saying. So go ahead and type something into the chat. Okay, I see brand. All right, a few brands there. All right. I want my first brave soul to come off of mute and tell me why they think a brand has more power than a product.
You can trust a brand more than a product.
A brand kind of serves like a person. Like it represents a person overall. Like you have the company and it's represented by a face, a symbol, rather than a product.
Brand can show quality.
Got you. It's a good one. Let me get one more.
I don't have an exact answer, but I feel like that would all differentiate depending on the type of trend there is in the world. If that certain product is trending, then maybe that product might be a lot stronger than the brand. Something like that. I don't have a for sure answer, but it's what I lean
No, I
towards.
appreciate it. No, that's a good response. And so, you know, the way that I think about this is the fact that, oops, Soleil, are you able to help me? Trying to minimize the chat here. There we go. So if I can go back a slide, let's see here. The way that I think about it is, you know, soda is a product, but Pepsi is a brand, or Coca-Cola is a brand. You know, a car is a product, but Mercedes-Benz is a brand, or a Range Rover is a brand. And so one of the things that I tell people when I present this, you know, in a work setting, I said, and an employee is a product, but if you're talent, that's a brand. And so a high school student is a product, a NAF Academy graduate is a brand, because you were a part of a legacy of all of those individuals that have come before you. And so when someone meets a NAF alumni and they had a positive experience, when they meet you, they're going to immediately associate that same brand of NAF with you. And so one of the things I want you to start thinking about is, how do you think about yourself as a brand, and what is your brand? And kind of evolving from just being the rest, because at the end of the day, no one in the world is like you. And the minute that you can understand and accept that, you're going to really start to be able to differentiate yourself. And when you think about it, there's a lot of brands out there in the world, and a lot of these brands you may recognize. So there's Amazon, and there's Walmart, there's Microsoft, there's Google, there's Apple. I mean, even to the point that even if I didn't have the name there, you would actually know what some of these companies are just based on their logos. Now, what's interesting is that for many of these companies, their brand is worth more than how much they sell, because people will apply additional value to it. And so one of the things that I want you to understand is that you're just as valuable as these brands. And what makes these brands valuable is how much people associate value with them and the perception that they have of them. And so you have the ability to be able to do the same thing for people to perceive that value. And at the end of the day, people will spend money on brands. That means you are a brand. And so if you think back to my internships, they were spending money on a brand. The job offers, they were spending money on the brand. The scholarships, they were spending money on the brand. You weren't just a student. You were a star student. You were a high-performing student. And so that's that brand that differentiates you, that allows you to be able to continue to advance and have additional opportunities. So we're going to start to dig into the meat a little bit more here in terms of brand equity. And so brand equity can be defined as the perceived value according to its customers. Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that you're always going to be selling. Whether you know it or not, whether you cultivate a brand or not, someone is going to assume what your brand is based on how you carry yourself, based on how you dress, based on how you speak. And so you have to be aware that even if you don't create one, one will be created for you. And so the elements of this notion of a brand is, what do people associate with you? Hey, he's cool. Hey, he's funny. Hey, she's smart. Hey, she's talented. People are already associating these things with you. Hey, she's driven. Hey, he's goal-oriented. You know, they start thinking about the quality. Hey, you know what? He always comes through. Hey, she always does really good work. They think about your brand experience. I really enjoy being around this person, so much so that I prefer to be around him or her than other people. And in doing so, that's a sign of loyalty. You know what? I'm always going to stick up for her because she's always done right by me. She's really smart. She's always, you know, come through. And that is a way that you continue to increase your awareness. And even you think about in the high school setting, when people become popular and people are aware of them, it's because of all of the things that are around this bubble. And so I want you to, even for a second here, just stop and think. And as we go through it, if you want to share, I'm happy to hear some examples. You know, what do you think your brand is? What do you think, you know, people say about you? And what people say about you, is that in alignment with how you think about yourself? And if it's not, it's okay, because there's things that we can do to actually improve that. And we're going to talk about that during the rest of the presentation. So the first thing you can do in order to figure out how to really build this brand and build this equity is you have to get insight, what I call snap. And this notion of snap is really about getting feedback, which is just a snapshot. I like to drive home this point of it being a snapshot, because sometimes that feedback is just about a moment in time. So we've all been there, and people I'm sure have stories of either people who were very supportive of you or people that may have been negative, and you can't hold on to that negative, because sometimes that can derail your brand and undermine you, because you keep thinking you are what that one person thought about you on that one day that you weren't at your best. And so I really like this quote, and I'll read it to you, that says, "The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there's little that we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice shapes our thoughts and our deeds." Now, it's a trick question. I want to see who gets it right. And I might have to see if I can send them a book or something. So Soleil, help me with this. When you are driving, what is it called when you can't see a certain area of the road? It's called your what? Who's the first person?
Blind side.
All right, who was that?
Me, Kendrick.
Kendrick? All right, Kendrick, we're gonna send something for you. That was a good answer. So many of us have blind spots. I have blind spots. You have blind spots. Those are things that if they were known to us, they wouldn't be blind spots. And so it's important for us to be able to get feedback, because we may think certain things about ourselves, but we don't realize it. A good example is your home. You know, every home has a certain scent to it. You live in it all day, so it's oblivious to you. But someone who doesn't live in your home and say, it either smells good or it may not smell good, but you may not have known the difference because you're there all the time. And so that's why it's so important for you to be able to get feedback to point out things that you may not be able to see. Now, this is something that, you know, I hope doesn't crush anybody's hopes and dreams here, but being smart is not enough. It's important, it's good, but it's not going to be enough to really shape your future. So when I stop and think about that, there's two different things here. There's what you call IQ and there's what you call EQ. Your IQ is about your intelligence, right? And it's important because that's going to allow you to be able to learn and develop new skills and to learn new ideas and concepts. Really important. But the EQ is your ability to evaluate, control, and express your emotions. If you're the smartest person in the world, but no one wants to be around you, no one wants to listen to you, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to work with other people, and you have to be able to be in a position to share your ideas and listen to other people's ideas. There's a lot of studies that have been done that actually say that 80% of your success in life will be determined by your EQ. So your interpersonal skills, your ability to be able to work with others. What is the source of your motivation and drive? Your ability to overcome adversity. Your leadership style. You know, some of it's going to go to your training and education. That's your IQ. Some of it's going to go to your strategic thinking. That's your IQ. But as you start to translate that into even school and college and into the workplace, 90% of top performers in corporations have high emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is responsible for 58% of those who are high performers on their job. And as you'll see in the bottom here, people with a high EQ actually earn almost $30,000 more annually than their counterparts with a lower EQ. I don't think I have that money slide with the rock, but I think you get it. So it's important for you to develop not only your intelligence and your book smarts, but you got to be able to have that emotional intelligence. So when you think about, well, Conrad, how do I do that? Glad you asked. As I mentioned before, people want to work with people they like. And you're learning some of that in high school. That's going to become even more so in college. And even if you decide to go to graduate school, where a lot of the curriculum is team-based. And so the simplest ways of thinking about emotional intelligence is along these domains. You've got your self-awareness, you know, how aware am I of my own emotions? And do I have the ability to manage those emotions? The other part of it is how aware am I of other people's emotions? Can I empathize with them? And am I able to develop relationships? Can I coach others? Can I diffuse conflict? Can I work in a team? Can I inspire others? So this is a concept that I want you to think about, because as I just mentioned, it's going to be really important as you go into college and you advance in your career. A new emerging concept is this notion of cultural intelligence. And I believe, especially growing up in Florida, like many of you, this is something that has really given me a leg up, because the cultural intelligence is your ability to interact in a multicultural situation. How well do you understand other people's culture? How aware are you of those cultures and being able to interact in those cultures? And can you adapt? And so, I was able to learn how to dance bachata and salsa. I'm Jamaican, so I was able to move within that culture, but I had my friends who were Caucasian or Asian. And so we ate each other's foods, we learned each other's cultures. And that's so important working in a global economy where you're going to be working and going to school with people from all over the globe. And your ability to adapt to people's culture and learn their cultures and share and your interest in their culture and share your own culture is going to give you a competitive advantage, especially as the workforce that you're going to enter is going to be increasingly more diverse than even the one that I entered. So you've done your homework, you're getting insight. Now you got to invest. And what I invest, I call declutter, clean, and repair. So many of the things that happen to us, sometimes we hold on to things. We hold on to a bad grade. We hold on to we failed, a class. We hold on to, we got in trouble for doing something. You have to ask yourself, does holding on to that help you accomplish the goals that you have for yourself? And if it doesn't, get rid of it. Get rid of it. And that thing you need to get rid of could be anything that might be distracting you from your goal. It could be fear. It could be negativity. And I'll be the first to tell you, it might be some friends. You're going to start to see as you get closer and closer to graduation and you're in school, there's certain people that they don't align to where you want to go, and they might actually be holding you back. And so you have to start thinking, what are the things that I need to get rid of? And then what are the things I need to clean up? There might be certain things that, you didn't do that well on, or certain things that you're okay with, but you know that in order to achieve your goals, you got to do a better job at that. And so I think it's important for you to declutter, get rid of certain things, clean up what's left, and then, do it in a way so that you don't let these bad habits kind of creep back in. So that's something else for you to think about. And lastly, it's going to be important to bring a professional for whatever those major repairs are. So if I can kind of, give you an example, you might need to work with a professional on your resume. You might need to work with a professional on helping you get really good at interviewing, because that's how you're able to secure jobs. You might need to deal with certain things about how you grew up that might lead you to have a short temper. If these are things that you can't let fester, because at the worst times, I promise you, they'll show up when the opportunity is at the door. So that's something to think about, making that investment in yourself. The third thing that I always encourage people to do in terms of building this brand is, how do you create interest? How do you get people to want to offer you opportunities? And how do you make sure you're ready for those opportunities? Because opportunities don't run on a fixed schedule. You never know when they're going to show up. And so the way that I break it down is to 4 things. What are the things that you value? And make sure you adhere to those values and you know those values. Because at the end of the day, colleges are looking for students based on values. Corporations are looking for students based on values. Investors, if you have an idea and you want to be a startup and you may not want to go the college route, what are those values? And almost any company's website you go to, you'll see where they talk about their values. And so in that process, they're saying, does this person's values align with mine? And also equally important for you to say, does this company's values align with yours? And if it doesn't, that may not be the right company for you. We talked about it earlier about, IQ and EQ. So the values is more about the EQ. The knowledge and the skills are things you have to keep working on. That's the IQ. How do you continue to be a continuous learner? How do you continue to work on the skills that are needed to help you be successful? But then back to goals, that's motivation and drive. That's back to your EQ. What are those goals that you have for yourself? And it's so important for you to have goals, because goals give you direction. And what I will tell you is this: I went through a phase in my youth where I was what I call renting goals. I was pursuing what my parents wanted me to do and what other people thought I should be doing. But you're going to reach a point where you have to determine, do I want to rent these goals or do I want to own these goals? And the best test is, think about how you treat things that you rent. If you stay in a hotel room, you don't vacuum the hotel room. You don't clean the room. Somebody else does it. But when it's your car and it's your room, well, somebody might clean your room. But when it's something that you own, you treat it differently. So I want you to remember the importance of owning your goals. And in doing so, one of the things that's important is this idea of unconscious competence, where you can do something well without thinking. And one of the ways that you can do that is through practice. And so think about the things that you need to practice in order to get there. And that's going to help you create habits and also create a good system. And so what I mean by that, let's say that, for me, I have a goal of aspiring to be, a very senior leader in a Fortune 500 company. And so I know that one of the good ways of doing that is by being someone who reads a lot. And so I want to have a habit of being someone who reads a lot of information to continue to grow and develop, both on things that are the IQ side that are important to my job, the knowledge and the skills, but also on the EQ side about interacting with others and leading teams. Okay, so that's the habit. How do I do that? How do I accomplish that habit? Well, I need to have a system in place. And so I do two things. One, I place holes on my calendar to make sure that I carve out time to read at least for 30 minutes a day. And then I subscribe to two different sources. One that sends me executive book summaries, and another one that sends me book summaries and video. And so that's a system that I know the email is going to come in. I know the day it's going to come in. My calendar is blocked, so I can give myself time to be able to invest in there to create that unconscious competence. So I want you to think about what are those positive habits that you need to develop in the systems there. And I also want you to think about, do you have any currently bad habits and the systems that reinforce those bad habits so you can start to undo them, especially if they're critical to you achieving your levels of success. And this is just a kind of a few examples of what I mean when those outcomes are lagging measures of your habits. So as an example, your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight might be a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your clutter might be a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. And so what's important here is that you'll get what you repeat. And so I want you to think about how you can put a system in place and what are the habits that you need in order to achieve that success. And so when it's all said and done, I want to make sure I leave enough time for questions. I want you to know that a part of a brand is also about inspiring. And no one else has your story, which is what makes you a brand. No one else is you. No one else has your life experience. Heck, no one has your DNA. And so the importance here is how do you tell that story in a way to create the same brands that we believe in, that you guys follow, online, on Instagram, on Twitter. Why are you following these brands? It's because it's a story that you connect with. And so there's a few quotes I want to read to you here, which is success is won by creating compelling stories that have the power to move people to action. Many of those brands that you affiliate with move you to some action, to buy their music, to buy their clothes, to go to their stores. They're moving you. What is the action that you want to move people towards to support your goals, and how do you get there? Our cumulative life experiences are stories that contribute to who we are as leaders. My whole leadership story, I told you about being first and being last, and what that meant for me in high school, what that meant for me in college. I skipped over it, but once I got into the workforce, I did the same thing. And in being first, I got to interact with leaders in the cafeteria and build up a relationship. In being last, when they were there working on projects, I could swing by their offices and we had the most amazing conversations that helped me develop into the leader who I am today. That didn't happen during the day because they didn't have the headspace. But that's when they were carving out time for their own development. And so I want you to remember that those life experiences shape your values, our morals, our dreams, which in the corporate world we call vision. And those people who set the vision are at the top of organizations, or your own vision as an entrepreneur. And that vision is what really allows us to make a difference in the world. So when you're telling your story, please, please, please keep it real. The last thing you want to do is to tell a story that isn't authentic, because it runs the risk of really damaging your brand if someone thought you were something and you turn out to be a fraud. So when you're telling your story, think about who you're talking to, and in terms of how detailed you need to be. Make sure you're being authentic. Make sure that purpose and the passion around that idea comes through. Ensure that you know your gifts, that you're living in those gifts, and that you're actually sharing those gifts with others, getting back to our deepest fear. And in doing so, what you'll be able to do is inspire others to tell your story, and that's how brands create equity. And so my final thoughts is, remember, opportunity doesn't run on a fixed schedule. So always make sure that you're prepared so you can seize those moments. I tell students, fear has no place in your success equation. And fear stands for false evidence of things appearing real. 95% of the things you're afraid of will never come true. It's so important for you to trust your values. Have a motto, have some type of a system that's going to help you make the right choice. For me, I always say family, faith, and health. If it doesn't work for my family, if it's in conflict with my faith, or it's not good for my health, I don't do it. And that's allowed me to be successful in making decisions around jobs I take or places I wanted to move to or things that people invite me to. I run that through the system and it helps me to make those decisions. Exposure is key. Right now, you're growing up in an environment and it's almost very well known to you. As you start to grow and develop, by you getting out of your comfort zone and getting into that growth zone, that exposure is that trigger. So listen to different music, follow different periodicals, talk to people who have different ideas than you, because all of that is going to help you with that emotional intelligence and that cultural intelligence that we talked about. For me, nothing removes and beats excellence. I always tell people, no excuse is acceptable. No amount of effort is adequate until proven effective. And that was actually the motto for our business school. And I can tell you how many of my peers who are successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, because they've never shied away from being excellence. Excellence is always going to be in season, and excellence is something you want to be a part of your brand. And the last thing I'll say is your network. My mom always told me, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And that starts right now. There are people that I'm still friends with from high school, and we knew that what we wanted to do, and we supported each other in that high school, college, even into our professional lives. And so again, don't be afraid to make some of those decisions, and don't think about your teachers being your friends. So Soleil, that's all I had. I'll stop there, and I'd love to take questions from the group.
Before we get started with the group's questions, I do have a question, and I know a lot of the students are probably thinking about this. You said you always had a desire for health science. Could you go into it a little bit of what exactly did you do at Johnson & Johnson, and then, the next company, and then how did you end up at Merck?
Sure. So, for me, I still had a passion for medicine. I still had a passion for healthcare. And I realized, even by being part of NAF in the health science field, that I could do that by working in the pharmaceutical industry. And so I did my internships at Johnson & Johnson in marketing, and that gave me an opportunity to learn about the industry. I was working on a product called Cypher right there in Miami Lakes, which was what they call a drug-eluting stent, which is a medical device that they put into your arteries to help open up the arteries if you have blockage from eating a high cholesterol diet. And then from doing those internships, that led me to work at GlaxoSmithKline, where I worked in vaccines on the pediatric vaccines. And I can almost say for certain, all of you on this call have received the product that I worked on, which is called Boostrix. And it was a product that was a booster shot for pertussis, or something called whooping cough. And you probably got it when you were about 11 or 12 years old. And it was one of the required vaccines in order to go back to school. And so for me, working in marketing, that's about, what's the price of the product? How do you promote the product? How do you sell it to physicians? How do you build the websites? How do you make sure the product gets from, manufacturing to doctor's offices? And so it really is about a full spectrum of bringing products to the market to be able to, help people be healthy. And then from that experience, I worked at Johnson & Johnson again in California on diabetes. I worked on a product called One Touch, which is helping people test their blood sugar, which is to help you monitor your diabetes. And you may know people in school who might have type 1 diabetes, which happens more often in the younger generation, but it's something that disproportionately impacts the Black and Latino community. And then at Merck, I've had a chance to work on a number of similar products in cardiovascular disease, migraine, Alzheimer's, surgical products, another diabetes product. And now, since joining Merck, I'm working in a role in policy, trying to understand all the different environmental factors like education and access to food and transportation and housing and pollution, and all these things that contribute to how healthy someone can be. And something maybe you'll take away from this is that there's now data that says your zip code is a bigger predictor of your health than even your own DNA. And so there's a lot that we can do in the pharmaceutical industry that allows you to be able to leverage those skills you're building in business, to leverage those things that you're learning in health science. And I work very closely with our IT organization on a lot of our digital solutions and capabilities and apps and so forth. And so it's just an example of, for me, my values was really about healthcare, giving back, helping people be healthy. And I found a way to leverage my business degree and parlay that into an opportunity where I get to do many of the things that you guys are studying within one particular industry.
Thank you, Conrad. And I know we have 2 students that have questions pertaining to that last slide.
Okay.
I think that really hit the mark for a lot of students. And as you're pulling that back up, I'll ask a follow-up question to a comment that you just made. And I think it's critical because oftentimes students think, if I'm going into health science, the options are I'm going to become a doctor, or I'm going to be a nurse. I'm actually going to be in the medical profession. But I think it's so important that you're showing them that there are other ways to be play an active role in healthcare and not necessarily have to go to medical school or be a doctor or be a nurse. That there are other ways in which you can really create impact in the health science industry. So Valencia, I know you were the first one that had a question. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? We are having a really hard time hearing you, Valencia. Maybe you want.
Maybe she can type it.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and type your question, Valencia? We cannot hear your question. In the interim, Sydney, do you have a question as well? Okay, Valencia would like to know, how do you trust your values, Conrad?
Yeah, it's something that it comes over time, right? You have to first understand, what those values are. And it really comes down to thinking, where did those values come from? From some people, they get it from their parents. From some people, it comes from their religion or their faith. And so I think it's just so important. For me, that motto is that there are times that I want to do things, and you'll hear other leaders say this, where for me, it's not about the money, as an example. It's about what impact I can have. And so I've turned down jobs that would have allowed me to make more money, but I wasn't doing it in a way that it was going to benefit my family. I was going to have to, take my kids and move them somewhere else, or move them away from family, or my wife was going to have to, give up her job. And so for me, that was something that didn't sit right with me. Or as an example, working for certain companies where, their products weren't products that I could get behind, or I knew that their products were having a damaging impact on the environment. And that's something that I care about. And so, it's something that you have to work at, and to get comfortable trusting those values. But the first, what I will say is, just do it once and see how you feel. And I think that feeling that you get from trusting your values will make you more comfortable doing it more and more. And in the short term, sometimes you feel like, man, did I miss out on the opportunity? But it's never failed that it's always worked out for the better for me when I decided to trust my values and not do something that was maybe on the surface seemed attractive, but was in conflict with what is really important to me.
The questions are coming in now. So the next question, Sydney, do you have a question? Sydney Taylor. Okay, we'll go to the next one. The next question is from Caroline. Can you repeat what FEAR stood for?
Sure. FEAR stands for false evidence of things appearing real. And so, Leigh, I think you and I talked about this where, students, where it's time to go away to school, and it's like, I'm afraid of being away from my family. I'm afraid I'm not qualified enough to do well in college. I'm afraid, that I'm going to rack up too much debt going to school, or I'm afraid to start my own idea, to tell people that I don't want to go to college, and I want to go be an entrepreneur. And so, I tell people that 95% of those fears never come true. And, that fear of failure often paralyzes us, but you will not find a successful person on this planet that didn't have a failure or a setback. I fail weekly, but it's the opportunity to rebound from that and to overcome it. And failure is a part of some of the best stories that you can tell from brands. Coca-Cola is famous for one of their failures when they changed the recipe and everybody had a visceral reaction to it, and they bounced back from it. And Tylenol had a failure where they didn't have a safety seal on their product, and people were tampering with it, and they found a new solution that's set a standard for how pill bottles are, and they've come back from that, and that was Johnson & Johnson. And so I just want to encourage you guys not to be afraid and to start to remove fear from your success equation and see it that all the things that you're afraid of failure, it's all it is really an opportunity to learn and to grow and to develop, and it just makes for that much of a better story.
Thank you for that. The next question is interesting because you and I discussed this yesterday as well about networks, right? Yeah. Can you go further into the importance of that friend network or professional network?
Sure. It's one of these things that you do, and it kind of happens organically when you're in school. It's like, oh, this is my friend because we're in the same neighborhood, or we ride the bus together, or we, are in the same classes. And some of that might exist, when you go to college, but as you kind of get further out, you have to be more deliberate. And so for me, I'm very deliberate about making sure I have a good balance of gender balance in my network. Do I have only men who are my friends, or do I have a good balance of women? Do I only have people who are my age in my network, or do I have people that are older than me and people who are younger than me? Do I only have people who are from my same ethnic background? Do I only have a bunch of Black friends or Jamaican friends, or do I have friends from different parts of the globe? And so this is one of the things that, I tell people that you have to start looking at your network strategically, because that network is what helps you succeed. I always tell people this: the difference between a star and a superstar is their team. If I had the team that Beyonce had, I may not have the talent, but they'll find a way to make me look talented, and I'll become a superstar. And it can be the same thing for you. And so when you look at so many people who are successful, it's not as much of an accident or luck as you think it is. It really is them being very deliberate. It's a lot of hard work, but being deliberate about the people that they're surrounding themselves with. And so, start thinking about my friends and like, how many friends do I have that, care about school? How many friends do I have that care about experiencing new things, that want to get out of their comfort zone? How many friends do I have that share my values? How many friends do I have who inspire me? And so you have to start thinking about those things, because when times are high, you want those people that are there who can help celebrate you. When times are low, you want those people to be able to bring you up. And Soleil and I have known each other for, we were joking, I guess 20 years, if not more. And because of that network is how we were able to connect and bring this forward for you all. And so that's why it's so important to continue to nurture those relationships and be thoughtful about how you build them. And once again, with a brand, you got to also be willing to say, who do you not want in your network? Because you may be the good student, but because you're associated with someone who has a negative brand, if you're not careful, that brand will then be associated with you, and it's hard to get rid of it.
Wow, so powerful. You have dropped so many incredible nuggets throughout this entire presentation, and I'm glad that it wasn't just on your professional journey to Merck, right? But it was also talking about the importance of emotional EQ, because being smart is just not enough. And there are oftentimes students that are not the straight A students that think, you know what, I'm never going to be successful because I'm not a straight A student. It takes more than just good grades to be successful, and knowing you for as long as I've known you, and to see you go from Homestead to all over the country and become as successful as you have has been an incredible journey to watch as well. And we stay connected via Facebook and LinkedIn, And I have seen him over the years, you know, post his promotion and post his moving on up. And I'm like, wow, you know, oftentimes you live in your bubble and you think this is all I'm ever going to see. But there is so much more out there in the world that you all can experience. And whether it is through the network of NAF or through alumni like Conrad Kelly, you know, look at the potential. Truly look at the potential and look outside of that bubble and outside of that circle and see yourself there. And then, you know, take the steps. Take the steps. One final word, Conrad, before we exit.
Man, you know, I'm just so proud to be affiliated with you all. And I want all of you to go on LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, today you should be signing up. Request me as someone to be in your network, because you never know, you know, right around the corner, you'll be looking for internships or you may be looking for a full-time job. And I know the brand that you are, you know, a NAF alumni, and I value that brand because I'm a part of it. And I try to do what I can to make sure other people value that brand. And so, you know, that's it. It's just go out there. Don't be afraid. Own your goals, own your narrative. And there's no limit to what you can do, because our deepest fear is just really how powerful you are. And once you acknowledge and embrace that power, there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Conrod, this is Mr. Reiser. Wanted to make sure I said hi to you. It's great to see you again. And thank you for the presentation. You did a great job.
Thank you.
All right.
Wow, blast from the past there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Conrad Kelly, for joining NAF today on behalf of Merck as well. Thank you once again. I know this will not be the last time we see you. Thank you to our NAF students from across Miami-Dade County for joining us this morning. Have a great rest of your day.